If you're the kind of reader who craves stories where power flips in the blink of an eye and those who think they control the world suddenly find themselves crushed by the very system they serve, then buckle up, because this is one you won't forget. And before you dive deep, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a tale that twists, burns, and leaves you breathless by the last word. Now let me take you into a night that turned an ordinary police arrest into a career-ending, life-destroying catastrophe. A night when a squad of local cops thought they were bringing down just another woman on a traffic stop but instead stumbled into the path of a black female general whose single phone call to the Pentagon would unravel everything they thought was safe and solid in their lives. Starting with Officer Grant, who was behind the wheel of the cruiser. A man used to barking orders, used to smirking at the small-town criminals he cuffed without consequence, and that night he saw the SUV parked half-crooked outside a quiet diner. The license plate not matching the records he quickly pulled up, so he told his partner, Officer Miller, that they had an easy bust, probably stolen, maybe drugs. Either way, they were about to notch another win for the department. But what neither of them knew was that inside that SUV sat General Alexandria Cole, a decorated war hero, one of the most brilliant strategists the Pentagon had ever produced, a woman who had faced down warlords overseas, negotiated hostage releases in jungles, and advised presidents on operations so secret they were never written down. And yet in that moment she was simply sipping lukewarm coffee from a paper cup, scrolling through classified updates on her secure tablet, wearing plain clothes with nothing that screamed rank or authority. So when the officers stormed up, flashing lights cutting through the night, she barely looked up, until they shouted at her to step out of the vehicle, and the way they shouted, like she was already guilty, sent a wave of cold clarity through her. Because she had dealt with men like this before, men who mistook the power of a badge for true authority, and as she calmly asked what the problem was, Officer Grant yanked open her door and barked about stolen plates, about probable cause, about her looking suspicious, and when she reached for her ID, Miller mistook the movement as resistance, dragging her out roughly, cuffing her wrists behind her back with unnecessary force. The irony bitter in her mind because these men had no idea they were putting chains on someone who outranked their entire city, someone who could pick up a phone and have 10 black SUVs outside the station in under 15 minutes, but she let them do it, because part of her wanted to see how far their arrogance would go, and they went far, shoving her into the back of the cruiser, ignoring her calm insistence that they check her identification properly, that they would regret this mistake. Officer Grant sneering that everyone says that every perp claims to know someone important, and when they rolled her into the precinct, the desk sergeant raised an eyebrow at her composure but processed her anyway, sliding her belongings into a plastic tray without noticing the small Pentagon-issued phone among them, a phone not connected to any public network, a phone that once activated would ping satellites and set protocols into motion that local cops could never dream of. And as they pushed her into a holding cell, laughing about teaching another mouthy one a lesson, she finally decided the game had gone far enough, so she made her request, not loud, not desperate, but in a tone so measured it cut through the room. I need my phone back. I need to make one call. They ignored her, Miller joking that she could use her one call on a public phone like everyone else, and that was the moment she looked at him, straight into his eyes, the calm fire of a commander burning there, and said, when I place this call, your careers, your pensions, your reputations will be gone within the hour. And though they laughed, the sergeant felt a twinge of unease, something about the way she carried herself, the way she didn't beg, didn't panic, only promised destruction like a fact already written. And finally, tired of the tension, he slid her belongings back through the slot, warning her not to play games, and with her hands uncuffed just long enough to unlock the secure device, she pressed a code, the screen lighting up with the seal of the Department of Defense. And within seconds a voice answered, crisp, authoritative, General Cole, are you secure? And the entire station seemed to freeze as she spoke 3 simple sentences, identifying her situation, her location, and issuing a directive for immediate response. Then she hung up, sat back, and told the stunned officers, now you wait. And wait they did, though not for long, because 12 minutes later, black SUVs screamed up outside, men and women in suits with earpieces flooding the station, agents flashing clearances higher than any warrant the local cops had ever seen, ordering her release at once, their tone not requesting but commanding. And as the cuffs were removed, as the general stepped out smoothing her jacket, she didn't scream, didn't gloat, She simply turned to Officer Grant and said, "You've made a mistake that will echo through the rest of your life," and the truth of it unfolded quickly, because by morning the story wasn't just in the precinct but in every corner of the media. Leaked documents exposing patterns of misconduct by Grant and Miller. Their records dragged into the light by investigative journalists who suddenly had anonymous tips. Tips planted by Pentagon officials who wanted to ensure the general's humiliation never went unanswered. So within days their badges were gone, their bank accounts frozen under scrutiny of financial crimes investigations, their families harassed by questions, their names trending for all the wrong reasons, and as they sat jobless, watching the world turn against them, the true weight of who they had crossed sank in, because General Cole didn't have to lift a finger beyond that one phone call. The machine of the state moved for her, crushing everything in its path. But the real twist came later, when whispers began spreading that she had engineered the entire night, that the mismatched plates were no accident but bait she left to test the arrogance of local authority, that she wanted to remind her own superiors at the Pentagon just how untouchable she could be, because in a system where power is perception, nothing proved her dominance more than showing she could erase lives with one call. And as Officer Grant sat alone in his empty house months later, staring at a letter blacklisting him from every federal job, every state contract, even private security firms, he finally understood that he had not arrested a woman that night, he had arrested a storm, and storms don't forgive, they consume. And somewhere in Washington, General Cole sipped another cup of coffee, her secure phone resting on the table, knowing she had taught another lesson in power, that the line between authority and ruin is one phone call away, and the ones who think they hold control are often the easiest to break. And though the city eventually moved on, though other scandals took over the headlines, in quiet corners of precincts across the country, officers whispered about the story, half legend, half warning, about the black female general who smiled in cuffs and burned men's lives down with a call, and they said her name softly, as if even speaking it too loudly might summon consequences, and those who heard never forgot, because the moral was carved into the bones of the tale. Never mistake the appearance of weakness for the absence of power. Never assume the woman you cuff is just another suspect, for she may be the one who writes your ending. And if you've read this far, you know why you should subscribe, because stories like these don't just entertain, they expose, they remind, and they burn long after the last word fades.